Hello and welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pearce. Second time lucky. I've just recorded this entire video once and I'm having to do it again, which is something of a problem considering I have a chest infection, as do about four of us who are in Ukraine at the moment out of the group that are here. And just because this pertains to Ukraine, I'll give you a little bit of an insight. Um, so, multiple sclerosis, which I have, is this disability that condition whereby the central nervous system is attacked by my body. The myelin sheath that covers the nerves, that's kind of like the plastic sheath that covers an electrical wire, is what my body appears to like to attack. And that then inhibits messages being sent around my body, which stops me being able to do normal things like walking and et cetera, very well. And I end up, well, the idea is that I'd eventually end up being unable to move in my bed and then I'll die. So that's nice. So I had stem cell therapy, interestingly, in Russia in 2019. Don't think I'll be able to do that again. That has kind of stabilized it. But one of the things that I suffer with is when I get ill, it completely destroys me. I'm not all the time. Depends what the illness is, but sometimes I just get hit right, and I can't. I remember when I had one of my booster jabs for COVID, and for like 12 hours at night, I couldn't move. I couldn't move my. I had to dolly step to the bathroom at night, and that took me 5 minutes, and it should take me about 5 seconds. And I couldn't. I just couldn't move, and the body, the uh, the illness can really, really exacerbate the symptoms, and as well as probably really raising my body temperature. And heat is bad for MS topically; it just makes you really bad. So we were on a night train last night, which is boiling, and that was worse. Anyway, we're in Lviv station, waiting to get a train to Kyiv. Benny had also already had this chest infection that we'd caught somewhere in Lviv, I think, and we're all coming down with it. And I was in the station; I could feel myself just nosedive. I said, guys, I don't think I'm going to be able to walk to the train. And these are old Soviet sort of style trains, very high off the platform. You have to get these big steps up to the cabin, to the carriages. And we had Yaroslava, who's a Ukrainian woman that's helping us through Jonathan Fink. She's been really, really useful, obviously speaking Ukrainian. And she, uh, it was very clear that I wasn't going to be able to walk. Literally, my legs didn't work. With MS, it's about the messages. So you can really try to move your legs, like really strain, but if the message isn't getting through, you can strain all you like. It ain't working. So anyway, I was in all sorts of trouble. I think they probably thought I was drunk. And this is how it does pertain to Ukraine. So we went and asked for a wheelchair. And they said, well, if you're going to have a wheelchair, we need your passport from Yaroslava. And she's like, we've got to get the train in like 10 minutes. And we've got to get him up to that platform, and then this is quite a long way away, and we've got to get um, the wheelchair back to you, and so I can get my passport. And they're like, yeah, you can nick the wheelchair or whatever. You're like, seriously? Anyway, um, got a wheelchair, had to get some steps. Jonathan Fink helped me up. My goodness, that was one of the most physically intense things, just walking up this flight of stairs I've ever done in my life. And I've done some pretty physically intense things in my life. But when your body doesn't work and you're putting, even though that effort, it doesn't really translate into movement, you're still whacking that effort in. So moving one step up at a time. The train is there. All these people are getting on, and anyway, eventually got up, uh, got wheelchaired to the train. Yaroslava had to run the wheelchair back. She was steaming with anger, saying, "Look, what is going on here? What's accessibility doing?" And then these steps onto the train, like Mark and Pierre and Benny, just literally had to manhandle me onto the train, lift me up. It was like I was pretty humiliated, right? You kind of get a sense of where you are in life when that's happening to you. And I was in a heap on the floor in the train, and then I had to kind of be helped to the cabin. And basically, I can do this now. Last 24 hours, I couldn't do that. I couldn't lift my arms. I couldn't. Um, I couldn't walk. Obviously, I couldn't even bring myself to speak. There was nothing left of me. I was like, I am done. It's just, I am absolutely done. Just hope I can get over this. As I say, really warm, even though it's quite cold outside, but really warm in this train. These sleepy trains. Got to Kyiv, and they'd warned ahead. They did get a wheelchair to meet us, which is great. But there's a policeman there was like said something. Apparently, I don't know, but said something like, "I don't give a fuck," or blah blah blah, or you know. And Yaroslava was steaming with anger again. She's like, rightly, there are going to be an awful lot of disabled people in Ukraine. There are an awful lot of disabled people in Ukraine. Unless they sort out accessibility, they're going to have some real problems. And for someone like me, I really take, I really appreciate, actually, and this is, some of you were like, typical, yeah, yeah, yeah. But actually, I really appreciate health and safety regulation in the UK. Some of you guys don't care about this, right? And I didn't care about it until now, right? When I go, I've been to a couple of quite nice hotels for my summer holidays over the last couple of years. But even then, you're like, well, this wouldn't happen in the UK because there's no railing down those stairs, and I literally can't walk down those stairs. Okay, it's really boiling hot, which makes my body go a bit funky, as just mentioned. And I need a railing or a wall to lean against to go downstairs all the time, or someone has to physically help me down the stairs, and I take it sideways one step at a time. If there are no railings or if there are flagstones that I have drop foot, particularly on my right leg where I can't lift my leg up and so it drags along the floor. If there are uneven flagstones, I trip over, right? So when you got hotels with uneven flagstones in the UK, that'd be like, yeah, that's health and safety, and you may pour scorn on health and safety, but for someone like me, that enables my life to be much easier. And it is really interesting somewhere like Ukraine, where it's like those big stations at Lviv and Kyiv aren't really taking into account accessibility. People in wheelchairs, people, the width of doors for wheelchairs is really important in the UK. That's regulated for, or as mentioned, rating on stairs, disabled toilets, all these kinds of things are really important. But in some countries that they just haven't caught up with that yet. And Ukraine, my point is that Ukraine will need to do that. Um, yeah, and Yaroslava was absolutely incandescent with rage there about. She's like, there's going to be some very angry social media posts. That's a modern human for you. But she was absolutely amazing. And I was bundled out. And then I was just in like a long sleeve t shirt in the cold Kyiv, like 6 o'clock air, and it just brought my body down. And I was like, just even that next hour after that, I was just able to move my arms, and now I can. My walking's not great, but I'm 100% different to how I was on a train. So hopefully, I mean, that has kind of knocked us out for today. Today's going to be a bit of a write-off for most of us, which is why I'm sitting recording this. This is from 2 days ago. Um, I thought that was just a little bit of an insight that might be interesting. But yeah, what a time for four of us to get a chest infection. My goodness, that sucks. So 2 days ago, I'm still going to do it because I had all my tabs ready to go. In fact, I've already said this all once. The Ukrainian General Staff figures for the Russian losses for 2 days ago, all the caveats apply. You can find them in the description to the video below. 1,500 personnel lost. 2 tanks, that's lower. 1,500 personnel is pretty high. 11 troop carrying AFVs, that's below the daily average. 39 artillery systems. 1 multiple launch rocket system. And we have 87 vehicles and fuel tanks and 1 piece of special equipment. So a fairly challenging day in some of those categories. Again, artillery systems fairly high. They seem to be concentrating on those, the Ukrainians. Now, when it comes to the Andrew Perpetua loss list for the 23rd, we can see it's about 1.5 times the Russian losses to Ukrainian losses, and that about fairly similar combat asset losses, although the Russians have lost a lot more trucks, ATVs, all-terrain vehicles, and civilian vehicles as well, probably indicating that that's what they're using to attack. If we look at the Ukrainian losses, we see a Strela 10, a short-range air defense system, a kind of Soviet-era one that the Ukrainians have. They've lost one to a Lancer. It's been damaged, actually. A few artillery pieces. The ratio of destroyed to damaged, or destroyed and abandoned to damage, is not too bad for the Ukrainians here. It's I don't know. I'm so useless. It's what happens when you literally can't feel your fingers. It all goes wrong. And we have a number of tanks, 5 tanks. None of them Western provided tanks. it appears, most of them T-64s, with a couple of infantry fighting vehicles, including a destroyed Bradley, and a bit of a mix of APCs, MRAPs, and IMVs, AFVs. As you can see, not too many of them, but one to point out there is a destroyed PVV 302. So those are the Swedish provided um, uh, Panzerbandwagen, the 302s that the Ukrainians have. And is that the first fully destroyed one? I don't know. A number of trucks there, actually. I haven't seen too many trucks on the Ukrainian side for some time, and quite a few destroyed civilian vehicles and whatnot. Okay, so that is the Ukrainian set of losses. Come on, press buttons. Frustrated with my own lack of being able to do things that most normal human beings can do rather easily. Okay, the Russians have lost a Harmony radar IL-122. Let's have a look at that. I don't know that. 122 Harmony radar. Oh, that was well done. Here we go. Radar. That was not bad typing, I guess. Okay, so let's have a look at radar tutorial, see what one this is. So it's a small bit of kit, nothing too large there. It's a short-range air surveillance and target acquisition radar. So useful to take that out, of course, but not like a massive Nebo radar or something like that. We've got M46, M42, D30s, a bunch of Mr. B's, engineering vehicles, so some old artillery there for the Russians, as well as slightly newer, but still fairly old artillery pieces. 3 tanks, including a couple of track gun sheds. The destroyed to damage ratio is a lot worse for the Russians here than the Ukrainians. For the infantry fighting vehicles, about 10 of a range there. APCs, usual culprits, and then quite a few trucks, Urals, Kamazes, a number of quads, and then a host of civilian vehicles getting taken out as well. So worst day for the Russians, but not by that much. And the Ukrainians losing or having a Strela 10 damage. So in Chasiv Yar, there was a claim that 100, the Russians burned 100 of their dead soldiers, according to the operational tactical group Luhansk. Apparently, they were hiding within the pipes around the Syrskyi Donetsk canal, and they were hit by airstrikes, hiding in these kind of pipelines that have been pretty much hammered already, these pipes. So they're very, very holy. But yeah, that happened earlier in January, and that's coming out now on video. I don't know that you can confirm that 100 troops died, certainly not from that video, but anyway, that's a claim from the Ukrainians. We have lots of random video footage. As per normal, we've got some interceptions of reconnaissance drones, which are always good to see. I've seen some incredible stuff. Been to see an unmanned ground vehicle, a group of guys making UGVs, and they have made their latest iteration to be pretty much indestructible. It's incredible, this bit of kit, and a fairly reasonable. I think it's like they reckon it's like $20,000 worth of kit, and it was bloody brilliant. We were watching them going around their test track, and it was absolutely incredible. Uh, and they're hoping to get some investment from the Drone Capability Coalition, so Latvia and UK, because they need to get out of from their funding at the moment. It's really weird. They're getting it from some local mafia boss that runs a market or something like that. So they're going to go and do some hopefully bigger and better things with a product that is they should easily get investment. Their product is amazing. They're selling them to these units. So the way that units get stuff is really interesting. And it doesn't really work that way. Certainly not for you can get local purchase orders, LPOs for the British military. I'm led to believe. So you can a unit can order things in locally, but it's not usually going to be things like weaponry. The weaponry you get centralized. You're like, we're going to use this weapon, and these brigades are going to get this stuff. Whereas in the Ukrainian army at the moment, brigades can kind of buy through crowdfunding, through their own funding, through the through the MOD and whatever. They get their own stuff a lot of the time. So you've got, say, for example, drone outfits competing with other drone outfits to get their stuff to these units, and these guys are saying, "Look, we're effectively getting these to the units at a loss, and it's unsustainable. We're putting our heart and soul into this, and and this is an amazing product, and we just need some proper funding. So they might well go and try and get some proper funding. We were talking about that actually here in terms of connections that some of us have got. Not me, I'm a YouTuber. But anyway, fascinating to see these UGVs, and saw some. We went to a UAV, aerial drone workshop, and met this guy that was talking us through the electronic warfare and drones that he was producing, and it was just incredible how enthusiastic these guys were and the stuff that they were producing. In terms of aerial drones, I think it's pretty much now that size does matter, which is lucky for me. No, size does matter. 13-inch. I find it fascinating that they talk about inches in terms of drones, but nothing else, right? JR, Dutch guy with us, my mapping legend, he was saying that in the Netherlands they use inches for screen and monitor sizes, but nothing else. What a weird situation to have a completely different measurement unit and system for just like one thing. But anyway, they talk about drones in terms of, I guess, corner to corner in inches. So they're like, we don't really entertain anything below 13 inches now. We need to be able to carry more weight. He showed us a sort of Baba Yaga they had in pieces, and all these different drones used for different things, how they test them in the lab. He said, next time you come here, I was like, oh, I'm coming again, am I? Next time you come here, we'll take you out to the test site, and we'll have a day of testing drones. I'm like, these guys are amazing. Like, they didn't know me from Adam. We rocked up to those guys, the unmanned ground vehicle. That guy was a legend as well. Went to JigasPaw, who are a procurement and drone and electronic warfare, drone components charity that are getting stuff to units. Not so much the drones. It's often components for drones, because they like, oh, we need to do this to the drones, or that's broken and we need to get hold of these parts, and they get a load of that stuff out to the units, which is really, really important, of course. And the guy that started running that is now gone and volunteered. If you volunteer, you can choose what units you go to. And Dimitro, he's been interviewed by Jonathan Fink previously, but he's now volunteered for the the unmanned systems battalion. Is it battalion? That new whole unit that's being created for unmanned systems. But he was, it's just fascinating talking to him. He had come back for the night to meet us in a restaurant that we're having our evening meal in, and just I absolutely bent his ear. Just loads of fascinating stuff coming from him. Hopefully we'll interview all three of those people actually. Yeah, have met and seen some absolutely incredible people and stuff. Okay, but yeah, anyway, the aerial drones place was talking about like interceptor drones, and how all the drone stuff works and what they need and what their challenges are. And they seem to, IRV is the name of that sort of startup. And yeah, they were brilliant. All these people, he said, we used to make doors. So me and my wife started this company making doors, and the war started, and we started making drones, and none of these people knew how to solder, and all of these people are still with us, and they're all like electronics geniuses now. He's like, I'll be doing some wiring, and one of my guys comes up to me and says, no, you've done that wrong. Well, that's not good enough. So even now, my guys are like better than me, and I've started this, and it's just incredible to see, where there's a will, there's a way, and yeah. Uh, so, what else to show you? A powerful fire engulfed a large warehouse complex in the Moscow region town of Klin, covering an area of 10,000 square meters. The cause of the fire is unknown. However, Klin hosts the Klin 5 airfield, home to the 92nd Separate Special Purpose Helicopter Squadron. Okay, moving on to distance strikes. And 2 nights ago was a very good night for the Ukrainians. But first of all, a bit more of a challenge for the Ukrainians defensively, as 58 drones were fired, and over 10% of them got through. So 6 drones got through. We've had days where 114 have been fired and all 114 taken down. So the percentages here somewhat more challenging. 25 shot down, 27 stopped with electronic warfare, all were decoys. One of those that fell into a block of flats outside Kyiv, causing the death of 3 people. 4 more people injured. So what goes up must come down, unfortunately. On the other hand, the mayor of Moscow, Sobyanin, reported that Russian air defense forces destroyed UAVs, drones flying toward Moscow in the Kolomna and Ramenskoye urban districts. And there were explosions in Kursk 2 nights ago. I don't know if that's to do with the contact line, or further back. Explosions in Bryansk too, very active there. There were the upper floors of the Institute of Management and Business in Bryansk were hit during a nighttime drone attack. Building was damaged. Russian media report that debris from another drone also hit the Investigative Committee building. I don't know whether that's purposeful or not. And then we have, for I think the third time, the Kremlin factory. It's a microelectronics factory that's involved in missile components. That was hit in Bryansk, and that was a big old explosion. So the Russian state media agency RIA confirmed that the attack hit the enterprise's technological chains, and they've been disrupted, and the factory's activity has been halted. So third time is a charm there. What else? I think we've got a bit of a summary from Tim White here. Yeah. What does he say? In Bryansk, it's been confirmed that the drones hit, the Investigative Committee building, Kremlin microelectronics plant, and Bryansk Institute of Management and Business. What else? Just loads. Okay, so the big ones were in Ryazan. So my goodness, there was explosions at either an oil refinery. I mean, there are quite a few. That's electric. So that's the CHPP. Some are saying central heat and power plant. Some are saying thermal power plant. That was hit, but also an oil refinery or oil depot. Quite often they are used interchangeably, even though they're completely different things. But my goodness, the explosion was huge at the oil facility. So we go up and look at that. So oil refinery in Ryazan, Russia. The airfield drones were shot down by air defense and electronic warfare systems over the Ryazan region, the local governor reported. Somehow Russian oil depots and oil refineries never confirm the stories local Russian authorities tell. I mean, goodness me, that is just a massive set of explosions and fire. So really devastating strikes on Ryazan 2 nights ago. My goodness. What else can we say? So we have Anton Gerashchenko here giving us. It seems like the rendering of this video has gone nuts. Russian Telegram channels report a massive drone strike on Russian cities last night. Bryansk, Ryazan, Rostov regions in Moscow were under attack. In Russia's Ryazan region, a fire broke out at the Rosneft oil refinery, he says there, and Ryazanskaya central heating and power plant. And in Bryansk, then talks about all the other strikes as well. It was said that 100 drones attacked 14 regions of Russia. Russian MOD reported shooting down 121 drones, so more than 100. Most of them over the territory of the Bryansk region, 37 there. The results of the successful work are listed above, and these are absolutely huge explosions, showing that the Ukrainians have had some great success there. But also in terms of hitting the power plant. Tim White says, meanwhile, Ukraine's attack on Russia seems to have struck gold, well, oil at least. Many explosions in Ryazan, south east of Moscow. 3 videos to show that reports, with reports that both an oil depot and a thermal power plant having been hit. So I don't know. But yeah, the governor of Ryazan said there was no damage and everything was shut down. The road to the Transneft oil depot was open long after the initial strikes, and there are many videos such as this one, so people freely appearing to be able to film that. Also, Russia doesn't have enough staff, and all emergency workers in the region have been ordered to report for duty, so they are in pretty desperate, pretty dire straits. Okay, moving quickly on. Yeah, so more footage of that, and then so not moving on yet. The next day, that was still on fire in Ryazan, the oil depot or refinery, probably depot by the looks of that explosion. In the local residents complained the whole city smells of burning. Yep, I would imagine that is certainly the case. Right, moving on to other bits and pieces. We are going to start with, and one thing I was discussing with Dimitro, who has volunteered, I said, look, people have this opinion of Zaluzhny. I don't think it's warranted. It's not that I'm anti or pro Zaluzhny. I'm just questioning intuition. So we all kind of got the sense that Zaluzhny was fantastic because he looked like a nice guy. He came across well. was quite shy, but he had Baby Yoda patches and all. Everyone sort of took a liking to Zaluzhny, and that transferred into an assessment of his military capability. And I don't think that's warranted. So when he's moved aside, people are like, "This is terrible. This shouldn't have happened." I was like, "Well, why? What do you know that Zelensky doesn't know?" I'm not saying that Zelensky is immune to criticism here. Like that might have been a bad decision, right? And it could have been political. And I think Zaluzhny is quite political, but Dimitro is interesting because he's also learning political science at the moment. He's kind of studenting and working in this battalion. He's an amazing chap. But so he's like, Zaluzhny is a pretty political guy, so there's going to be a lot of that going on. But we must be careful when we say, oh, Syrskyi's rubbish and he was known as a butcher and his parents are from Moscow or whatever, and Zaluzhny was cool and he's much better. It's like, okay, where's the actual evidence for the decisions he made? Because actually, when you look at some of the troubles that Syrskyi was facing at the beginning of his tenure, that was as a result of Zaluzhny. In fact, the counteroffensive was not the success that Zaluzhny predicted, and that was, he admitted he got loads of stuff wrong for that. So, we just need to be careful. Anyway, I was speaking to Dimitro and said, "Look, what do you think about these two? Who's better?" Blah blah blah. He said pretty much the same. Not much difference between them. So he was like, yeah, really kind of non-committal about either of them. To be fair, we went on to talk in more detail about particularly Zaluzhny, but I thought that was interesting. Success of Kursk operation offers hope for further victories, said Syrskyi. He also stressed the importance of technological superiority. That was something that Zaluzhny said in that Economist article as well, and that's true. And learning from mistakes to maintain a strategic advantage. And that's kind of what I was seeing yesterday. Not so much learning from mistakes, but like trying to get that technological advantage in these certain areas. Ukraine's commander-in-chief says the Kursk offensive won't be the last one. No country has ever won a war on the defensive. And new offensive operations can be expected. I heard rumors that down in Pokrovsk, rather like they did up in Kursk, where they were able to move in personnel and material under the guise of defending against the Russian attack, and that meant they could mount these forces without being a threat, with the Russians not thinking particularly anything was going to happen, although there were some that were reporting it. But they disguised their amassing of troops and then did the surprise attack into Kursk. There are some rumors that they're doing that in Pokrovsk area, that actually just under the guise of defensive forces amassing there, they might be ready to do a counterattack there, but I don't know if that's true. Yeah, so that's a couple of Syrskyi's opinions. He sees gradual improvement in the scandal hit French-trained brigades' capabilities. So Syrskyi said that the 155th and Kyiv Brigade, where the commander, I think the brigade commander was arrested recently, is gradually acquiring certain combat capabilities after reports of poor command and training. So that is good news there. And moving towards the end, I don't know why I've got this one in here. UK and US sanctions force Russian oil tankers to reflag, according to Bloomberg. The removal of these flags disrupts Russia's oil export logistics, forcing tankers to re-register in less reputable jurisdictions and change ownership to avoid detection. Velikin-Ovosilka is an area that has been of concern for the Ukrainians. There were rumors that people had been surrounded there and trapped, but the claim from null reports is that the Ukrainians have pulled successfully out of there, and the Russians have planted a flag in the middle of the town. And there was a mass internet outage 2 days ago. Loads of big internet services and companies having issues across Russia, probably as a result of some kind of hacking. So good news for the Ukrainians there in disrupting Russia as much as possible. Anyway, that's enough from me. I need to give my voice a rest. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.